All right, hello, my wonderful students. I hope you're all doing well. This is going to be Key Issue 1 and 2 of your Chapter 12 video lecture. Remember, we're going to try and get through this super quick so that we can move on to reviewing for the AP exam. So, Chapter 12 is all about services and settlements. We are officially in Unit 7. Unit 7 takes a look at cities and urban land use. So we're going to be looking at services and settlements in urban environments, but we'll talk a little bit about in rural environments as well. So key questions: where are services distributed? Where are consumer services distributed? Where are business services distributed? And then why do services cluster in settlements? So first thing on our note sheet here, we've got 3 different types of services that we want to know. The first are our consumer services. The principal purpose of consumer services is to provide services to individual consumers who desire them and can afford to pay for them. So that's important. You need to want the service and you need to be able to pay for the service. About half of all jobs in the United States are in the service sector. And we've got 4 main types of consumer services. We've got retail and wholesale jobs, education services, health and social services, and then leisure and hospitality. So retail and wholesale, that would be like Walmart or Macy's. Education services would be like tutoring or other kind of private school opportunities. Health and social services, obviously like your doctor's offices, and then leisure and hospitality. So that would be like restaurants and hotels and movie theaters and all that good stuff. So here we can see the breakdown of our different types of consumer services. So 14% are in retail and wholesale, 13% in health and social, 9.5% in education, and then 9% in leisure and hospitality. And then we've got 3 types of business services. So our business services, the purpose of these is to facilitate other businesses. So this makes up about 25% of all jobs in the United States. And our 3 types of business services are professional services, financial services, and then transportation services. And then here's our breakdown. So about 11% of those jobs are professional services, 7.4% transportation, and then 6.7% financial. So what's important to understand about business services is these services aren't being provided to people like me and you. They're being provided to businesses. So it'd be like a lawyer who defends corporations, okay, or financial services that are targeted towards businesses, not individual consumers like me. That would be a consumer service. And then our 3rd type of service is public service. So the purpose of this is to provide security and protection for citizens and businesses. This makes up about 5% of all jobs in the United States, and workers are divided among various levels of government. So federal government makes up about 1/6 of all public sector employees. The state government makes up about 1/4 of public sector employees, and then local government jobs make up about 3/5 of our public sector employees. So federal government, we know that's like the United States government. State government would be Illinois, and then local government would be like Lake County or Lake Villa or Lindenhurst. And then there's our breakdown of government workers to other public services. And then as you can see in this picture, like police officers, firefighters, those would all be your like local public services. Unless you were an Illinois trooper, then that would be like a state public service. If you worked for the FBI, that would be an example of a federal public service. All right, so where are services distributed? So rising and falling service employment. The service sector of the economy has seen nearly all of the growth in employment worldwide, and it is also the sector that is most negatively impacted by recessions. So the previous recession that we experienced around 2008, but then also we're definitely seeing that now, right? All the restaurant and hotel employees who are out of jobs right now due to COVID-19. As far as change in number of employees, within business services, jobs expanded most rapidly in professional services like engineering, management, and law. And within consumer services, the fastest increase has been in the provision of healthcare. So certainly healthcare workers are in high demand right now due to recent events. This shows us the breakdown of different types of jobs over time. Okay, so we can see we've got our breakdown here of our primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. So that came up in the last unit. So primary sector, this is anytime you're extracting something from the ground or from earth. We've got our secondary sector jobs right here, and then our tertiary sector. So agriculture and mining, primary sector, manufacturing and construction, those are secondary sector jobs. And then all of these, right, government, retail, wholesale, finance, these are all examples of tertiary sector jobs, and we can divide them into, again, our public, consumer, and business services. So geographers use the central place theory to help explain why consumer services follow a regular pattern based on the size of settlements, with larger settlements offering not only more consumer services, but also more specialized ones. So geographer Walter Christaller proposed this concept of a central place in the 1930s. We already know this, right? We know that there are more services and more specialized services located in Chicago, Illinois, than there are located in Lake Villa, Illinois. Right? The larger your settlement, the more services you're going to have, the more specialized services you're going to have. The definition of a central place is a market center for the exchange of goods and services by people attracted from the surrounding area, and it is centrally located to maximize accessibility. We want as many people as possible to be able to access that central place so that they can use the services that are located there. A market area or hinterland is the area surrounding a service from which customers are attracted. Depending upon your service, your market area might be larger, right? The market area for the Chicago Bears is much larger than the market area for a convenience store or a Walgreens or a gas station. People aren't willing to travel long distances to use those types of services, but they might be willing to travel long distances to go to a Bears game or to go to Disney World or something like that. The range of a service is the maximum distance people are willing to travel to use it. So people travel short distances for everyday services like groceries, movie rentals, the pharmacy, the dry cleaners. People travel greater distances for services that are offered exclusively in public or in specific places. So like concerts, professional sporting events, like I said before, like Disney World, the range of those kind of specialized services is much wider or farther, okay? And then the threshold of a service is the minimum number of people needed to support the service. So service providers determine the suitability of a service center by overlaying the range of potential customers to its threshold. So they need to figure out, like, if I want to build a Starbucks and I'm looking for a location to build my Starbucks, I know that I need to sell $10,000 in coffee a day in order to be able to pay my bills. So what I need to do is I need to look at the range of this service. How far are people willing to travel for Starbucks? Probably not more than like 20 or 30 minutes, right? And that would be like on a special treat day. So then I need to look at that and I need to say, okay, if people are willing to travel 20 minutes, how many people live within 20 minutes of this Starbucks and are willing to use this service? And if based on that number, I think I can sell $10,000 in coffee a day, then that's good. Then that's where I'm going to build my Starbucks. But if not, if there aren't enough people in that area, or if the people aren't willing to purchase my service in that area, then my service isn't going to do well, and I'm not going to build my Starbucks there. I'm going to find a different place. All right, hierarchy of consumer services. So only consumer services that have small thresholds, short ranges, and small market areas are found in small settlements. So the smaller the settlement, the less services and the less specialized services. Larger settlements provide consumer services that have larger thresholds, ranges, and market areas. And developed countries have numerous small settlements with small thresholds and ranges, and far fewer large settlements with large thresholds and ranges. So next is your market area analysis. Service providers believe that the location of a business is the most important factor to its profitability, and there are steps that are taken to determine the profitability of a location, and we kind of already talked a little bit about this. So again, let's pretend that I'm a Starbucks. The first thing I need to do, I'm looking for a new location to build my Starbucks. The first thing I need to do is compute the range, okay? I'm going to survey my local residents. I'm going to ask them about their willingness to travel to Starbucks, okay? And I'm going to ask them about their willingness to buy grande vanilla lattes with almond milk, okay? And if I see that people are willing to travel to use my service and they're even willing to purchase my service, then that's a good start. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to compute my threshold. So I'm going to identify how many patrons are needed to meet expenses. Remember, I need to sell $10,000 in coffee a day. So I need to figure out how many people need to live in the area of my store to support that number of sales per day. And then I'm going to draw my market area. I'm going to draw the range around the potential location of my new store. I'm going to identify whether or not the threshold is met within that radius, okay? Am I going to be able to sell $10,000 in coffee a day based on the number of people who live here, the distance they're willing to travel, and whether or not they're willing to buy my coffee? The gravity model is a model that we use to predict the optimal location of a service. And we say that the optimal location of a service is directly related to the number of people in the area and inversely related to the distance people must travel to access it. So that's really wordy and confusing. Essentially, the best location will be one that minimizes travel for all potential customers, okay? The best location for your Starbucks is going to be one that minimizes travel for as many people as possible, so lots and lots of people have the option to use that service. All right, and next on your note sheet is the nesting of services and settlements. So the central place theory says that market areas across a developed country would be shaped as a series of hexagons of various sizes and less interrupted by physical features. And I'll show you what that looks like on the next slide. But basically there are 4 different levels of market areas that exist. You've got your hamlet, which is going to be your smallest itty bitty little village, but even smaller than that. You've got your village, your town, and then your city, which is going to be your largest. And basically, the theory just says that we can take a look at any kind of area in a developed country, and we're going to see one really, really big city surrounded by much smaller towns, villages, and hamlets. And this is not ever going to be perfect. This is just a theory. This is just something that a geographer came up with to try and explain where you'll find different types of services. But if you actually go and try to overlay this pattern on top of different parts of the United States, you can see that it's kind of there, right? We've got our biggest city right here in the middle, Minot, North Dakota, surrounded by your smaller towns that actually almost do make that hexagon pattern. So basically what it says is that we're going to have the most hamlets. You're going to have far more hamlets in a developed country than you do villages. You're going to have more villages than you're going to have small towns, and you're going to have more small towns than you will cities. There'll be fewer of your large cities with more services and more specialized services, and there's going to be lots and lots of small towns, villages, and hamlets that are going to have less people, less services, and less specialized services. Next on your note sheet is rank size. So ranking settlements from largest to smallest in many developed countries produces a regular pattern or hierarchy. The rank size rule states that the country's nth largest settlement is 1/nth the population of the largest settlement. And now this gets a little confusing, but I'll explain it. So basically all it does is if we wanted to plot these, then it would produce a straight line on your graph. Exceptions to this rule include the presence of a primate city, and this is a city that is more than twice the population of the second ranking settlement. Okay, so here's what this is going to say. It's going to say that my second largest settlement in my country is going to be half the size of my largest settlement. Okay, so here I've got my N and I'm putting in 2. So my second largest settlement is going to be half the population of the largest settlement. My third largest settlement would be a third of the size of my largest settlement. My fourth largest settlement would be 1/4 the size of my largest settlement, and so on and so forth, right? My 20th largest settlement will be 1/20th the size of your largest settlement. Now, this is in developed countries, and it's never, ever, ever going to be a perfect science, okay? So here's the United States. And we can see the largest city in the United States, according to this, is 20 million people, okay? And then our second largest is about 10 million people. So that would follow the rank size rule so far, because our second largest is about half the size of our first largest, okay? Then our third should be about a third of the size of your first largest. Our fourth should be about a fourth of the size of our fourth largest. Now in Mexico, a less developed country, it doesn't quite follow this pattern, okay? Because my first largest city, which is Mexico City, is far more than double the size of my second. Okay, so that makes Mexico City a primate city because it's more than double the size of your second largest city. Okay, so that's all we've got for key issue 1 and 2. I will get you key issue 3 and 4 tomorrow, and have a wonderful rest of your day.